Meghan Markle once again under fire after a damning expose on the Sussexes was published by Hollywood Bible Vanity Fair.
Vanity Fair has turned on them.
You know that couple. Yeah, that couple. The ones who dramatically walked away from the royal family, heads held high, claiming they were fleeing a toxic media circus, escaping for their mental health, their peace, their freedom. The fairy tale rebels who told the world they just wanted a quiet life, away from the cameras, away from the cruelty, away from the pressure. Remember how everyone felt sorry for them at first? How people rallied around them, convinced they were brave, broken, and finally choosing themselves? The ones who built an entire brand around compassion, mental health awareness, and breaking free from oppressive institutions. Yes.
They did this huge takedown on the Sussexes. They went really deep into some of those failed deals, especially the Spotify.
Those two. The self-appointed champions of kindness, the voices of empathy, the couple who turned vulnerability into a logo and trauma into a business model. They told us they were different, better, more evolved, more aware. And for a while, people believed it, wholeheartedly. Yeah. Well, Vanity Fair just dropped a bombshell that's making everyone question whether we've been watching the greatest PR con of the decade. Because suddenly, the glossy, perfectly curated image cracked. And not in a small, dismissible way. This wasn't some messy rumor floating around a comment section. This was a moment. A loud, unavoidable moment that made people sit up and say, "Wait, what?" And I'm not talking about some random tabloid hit piece here. This is Vanity Fair, the Hollywood Bible, the magazine that once put Meghan on their cover when she got engaged to Harry and basically crowned her as modern royalty.
The person who interacted professionally with her says, "I think if Meghan acknowledged her own shortcomings or personal contributions to situations, rather than staying trapped in a victim narrative, her perception..."
That's what makes this sting. Vanity Fair wasn't always skeptical. They adored her once. They helped build the myth. They helped sell the story of the American actress who stepped into history and modernized royalty with grace and compassion. So when they change their tune, people listen. But now they're painting a completely different picture. Music and the details are absolutely wild. Here's what's happening. And what's happening is messy, uncomfortable, and impossible to ignore. Multiple sources. Former staff members, people who were actually there, who worked behind closed doors, who saw everything when the cameras were off and the smiles dropped. They're coming forward with stories that don't just slightly contradict the Sussex narrative, they completely shatter it. Employees taking extended leaves of absence, staff needing long-term therapy, people literally walking away from jobs because working with Meghan became unbearable. One story in particular is jaw-dropping. People connected to her Archetypes podcast describe hours wasted trying to convince Prince Harry about podcast ideas.
Prince and the starlet, according to Vanity Fair, have become local villains in Montecito. Quoting someone as saying they are the most entitled, disingenuous people on...
Hours. Endless circles. No direction. No clarity. One colleague reportedly worked on just 3 episodes before taking a leave of absence and then leaving the production company entirely. 3 episodes. Let that sink in. That's not creative tension. That's not a bad week. That's a pattern screaming for attention. And these aren't trolls hiding behind anonymous usernames. These are professionals, industry people, people with reputations to protect. People who saw the reality behind the image. According to Vanity Fair, the prince and the former starlet have even become local villains in Montecito. One source bluntly called them the most entitled, disingenuous people on the planet. And the most cutting remark came from someone who dealt with Meghan directly. They said if she could acknowledge her own shortcomings instead of clinging to a permanent victim narrative, public perception might actually improve. That's not hatred, that's exhaustion talking. And here's the part that really makes people furious. This is the same woman who has built an empire around compassion and mental health. It's literally on their website. They claim they fled England to escape the press, and yet
to get away from the scrutiny of the press, supposedly, and all they do is try to get in the press in the United States. So what does all this tell?
all they do in America is chase headlines. So what does all this actually tell us? They position themselves as advocates for people struggling with mental health issues, particularly around online bullying and media scrutiny. Yet, according to Vanity Fair sources, staff members are ending up in therapy because of their work environment. The irony is painful, almost cruel. You can't preach healing while leaving damage in your wake. You can't talk about kindness while people working for you are emotionally unraveling. And just when you think that's the worst of it, it gets even darker. But now it reveals that actually she in particular is a nasty little bully who sends staff into therapy. Think about that for a moment. Vanity Fair didn't stop at workplace drama. They talked to neighbors, Montecito locals, and the reactions were brutal. One called them the most entitled, disingenuous people on the planet. Another pointed out the contradiction at the center of their entire story. They move to escape press scrutiny, yet every move they make seems engineered to attract it. Interview after interview, documentary after documentary, book after book. So which is it?
The stories about her bullying staff over here in the UK, which is unresolved. NDAs stopped all that stuff coming out, but she bullied people in a very unpleasant way over here.
Victims of media intrusion, or addicts who can't survive without the spotlight. And let's not forget, this echoes the bullying allegations from the UK. Allegations buried under NDAs. Stories palace staff were never allowed to fully tell. Back then, people excused it. Different culture, stress, adjustment issues. But now, same behavior, new country, same outcome. When they first arrived in Montecito, everyone thought peace had finally arrived. That illusion lasted about 5 minutes until Netflix cameras rolled in. Then came Oprah, then the memoir, then more shows, more podcasts, more confessions. For people desperate for privacy, they sure never stopped talking. They left the royal family in 2020 claiming mental health concerns. Since then, they've shared more private information than they ever did as working royals. So, it's no surprise to people who work at Buckingham Palace. They saw all this, they witnessed it, they just shrugged and said, look, hypocrites, grifters. As the Spotify guy put it, a pair of effing grifters. And that's what makes the Vanity Fair piece so significant. This isn't British tabloids anymore, this is American media. The same people who once defended them now questioning the entire story. When Piers Morgan criticizes them, it's easy to dismiss it as bias. But when Vanity Fair publishes detailed accounts of workplace toxicity, when neighbors speak out, when Spotify executives openly call them grifters, that's not coincidence. That's a pattern. And they're desperately trying to maintain some kind of future as a renegade royal couple when they're no longer part of the royal family. The royals don't talk to them.
Had made them into sociopaths, according to Harry, and he wanted to explore how they became sociopaths, but he remained totally normal and was not, quote, one of these bad guys. And Vanity Fair pointing out, trying to get a season's worth of world-famous sociopaths to talk about how they developed sociopathy would be what is referred to in access journalism as a booking challenge.
The king doesn't speak to his own son. None of the senior royals do. And that isolation didn't happen randomly. It happened because trust was destroyed. Now let's connect the dots. Remember when they lectured everyone about climate change while hopping on private jets owned by billionaires? Remember the $500,000 baby shower surrounded by celebrities posted on the same day they lectured people about poverty? You honestly can't make this stuff up. And then there's the privacy contradiction. Harry fights newspapers in court for invading his privacy while selling intimate family conversations to Oprah, Netflix, and book publishers for millions. He shares details about his grandmother, his father, his brother, his sister-in-law, things that were never meant for public consumption. So let's be clear, when tabloids report on them, it's an invasion. But when Harry sells those same details himself, it's activism? The royal family themselves reportedly say if you ask who invaded royal privacy the worst, the answer is Harry, not the paparazzi. Harry. And that contradiction is finally catching up to them. Then there's the work ethic revelation. According to Vanity Fair, neither Meghan nor Harry had concrete plans for their massive contracts. No roadmap, no strategy, just names and outrage. Multi-million-dollar deals with nothing solid behind them. And Harry's podcast idea? Almost surreal. He wanted to interview people like Putin and Zuckerberg, not about policy or tech, but about childhood trauma, framing them as sociopaths, while positioning himself as the emotionally healthy one. The lack of self-awareness is staggering. And now, the final twist. Meghan's lifestyle show. Cooking, luxury, celebrity friends, all launching after devastating California wildfires that left thousands homeless. Families lost everything, and she's about to showcase her mansion kitchen. The optics are horrifying. And now, the American media is turning. Projects are failing, deals are collapsing, sympathy is gone. What they're facing now isn't backlash. It's something worse. Irrelevance. Because when the audience stops believing, the spotlight goes dark. And for people who built their entire identity on attention, that might be the most devastating ending of all. And that's the part they never planned for. Not the criticism, not the backlash, not even being called names in headlines. They've survived all of that before. What they never anticipated was the slow, chilling silence that follows when people stop caring. When outrage turns into boredom. When even the hate clicks dry up. Because attention, whether good or bad, was always the fuel keeping their story alive. You can feel it shifting now. The tone around them has changed. The patience is gone. People aren't angry anymore, they're tired. Tired of the same complaints. Tired of the same recycled pain packaged as truth. Tired of watching two extremely privileged people lecture the world while living lives most people can't even dream of. The sympathy that once flooded social media after the Oprah interview has evaporated, replaced by raised eyebrows and quiet eye rolls. And it's not just the public. Hollywood sees it too. Executives notice patterns. They notice when projects stall, when teams burn out, when ideas never materialize beyond vague conversations. They notice when staffers quietly warn others behind the scenes. Because in that world, reputation travels faster than press releases. You don't need a scandal when word of mouth does the damage for you. That's why this moment feels different. Vanity Fair didn't just criticize, it documented. It laid out a pattern, the same complaints in different countries, the same fallout with different teams, the same story told by different voices who never coordinated but somehow all described the same experience. That's when denial stops working. That's when the everyone's against us defense collapses under its own weight. And what makes it even more uncomfortable is how avoidable all of this was. A little humility, a little self-reflection, even a single moment of genuine accountability could have shifted the narrative. People are forgiving when they sense honesty. But instead, every setback becomes another injustice. Every criticism becomes another attack. Every failure becomes proof that the world just doesn't understand them. And that victim loop is exhausting to watch. You can see it in how their projects land now. There's no excitement, no buzz, just curiosity mixed with skepticism. People don't ask, what are they creating? They ask, who are they blaming this time? And that's deadly for any public figure. When your work becomes secondary to your grievances, the audience checks out. The cruel irony is that they wanted freedom. And they got it. Total freedom. No royal constraints, no palace rules, no protocol, no institution to blame. And yet, without that structure, without that contrast, everything feels hollow. The rebellion loses meaning when there's nothing left to rebel against. All that remains is noise. Meanwhile, the royal family keeps moving. New initiatives, new faces. The machine rolls on, unbothered. History has taught that the monarchy survives scandals, abdications, even wars. 2 former members complaining from across the ocean barely register anymore. And that realization must sting. Because nothing hurts quite like discovering you're not as essential as you thought. So here they are. Cut off from the family they criticized, side-eyed by the industry that once welcomed them, questioned by the media that once protected them, and watched by an audience that's slowly losing interest. That's not persecution. That's consequence. And the most brutal part? There's no villain left to fight, no institution to point at, no tabloids to rally against. When the American media turns, when Hollywood distances itself, when even sympathetic viewers start saying enough, the mirror gets harder to avoid. Because eventually, the only question left isn't who betrayed them, it's whether they betrayed themselves. They sold the world a story about escape, healing, and authenticity. But stories only work when actions match the script. And now, with every exposed contradiction, every burned bridge, every exhausted staffer, the illusion fades a little more. What's left is two people clinging to relevance, hoping the next reveal, the next show, the next carefully staged moment will reignite what's already gone cold. And that's the real reckoning. Not a headline, not a lawsuit, not a viral clip, just the slow realization that the audience has moved on and the spotlight they built their entire identity around is no longer shining the way it used to.